She covered her mother's shift as a cleaner in a hotel and was mistaken for a guest. Before we explore all the details of this incredible story, tell us where you're following us from and the time. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing, and let's embark on this journey together. The fluorescent lights of Boston General Hospital cast harsh shadows across Lana Brooks' face as she stared at her phone, thumb hovering over the decline button. Her supervisor's name flashed on the screen for the third time that evening. With a deep breath that seemed to come from her very soul, she finally answered, "Hey, Leslie. No, I understand. Of course I can cover tonight's shift at the Harmony." Lana's voice remained steady, though her free hand unconsciously traveled to her mouth, teeth finding her thumbnail, a nervous habit she'd never managed to break. "Mom's fever broke an hour ago, and Camille can handle things for one night." She ended the call and leaned against the cool hospital wall, closing her honey-colored eyes against the reality of what she'd just agreed to. Another double shift. Another night of running herself ragged, but bills didn't pay themselves, and her mother's medication wasn't getting any cheaper. The hospital corridor buzzed with the usual evening chaos, nurses rushing past with charts, the squeak of non-slip shoes on linoleum, the distant beep of monitors. This was her world, or at least it would be once she finished her nursing degree. For now, she was just another student, trying to balance clinical rotations with actual paying jobs. "You're going to work another shift." The voice belonged to Melody Watson, one of her clinical instructors. The older nurse's face creased with concern. "Lana, you've been here since 6 this morning." "Got to do what we got to do," Lana replied with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Besides, it's just cleaning rooms at the Harmony, not exactly brain surgery." Melody shook her head, silver curls bouncing slightly. "You're one of our most promising students, but you won't be any good to anyone if you burn yourself out." Lana adjusted her practical ponytail, trying to tame the cascade of brown curls that always seemed to escape. "I appreciate the concern, but I'm fine. Really." The lie tasted bitter on her tongue, but it was one she'd gotten used to telling. The truth, that she was exhausted down to her bones, that she couldn't remember the last time she'd slept more than 4 hours straight, that she was terrified of her mother's worsening condition. None of that would help anyone. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Camille. "Mom's asking for you. When are you coming home?" Lana's fingers flew across the screen. "Got called into Harmony. Emergency coverage. You okay handling things tonight? Left dinner in the fridge. Make sure she takes the 8 p.m. meds." The response was immediate. "Whatever. I got it," followed by a string of eye-rolling emojis that somehow managed to convey both teenage annoyance and reluctant acceptance. Lana could picture her sister now, probably sprawled across her bed with her purple-tipped braids splayed on the pillow, headphones blasting whatever underground artist she'd discovered this week. At 17, Camille was all fire and dreams, writing poetry in the notes app of her phone and sketching clothing designs in the margins of her homework. Sometimes Lana envied her sister's ability to still see the world in possibilities rather than responsibilities. The locker room was empty when Lana went to gather her things. She pulled out her work clothes, only to find them stained with coffee from this morning's rush. "Perfect," she muttered, rummaging deeper into her bag. Everything else was in the laundry at home, a task she'd planned to tackle tonight before her mother's fever had spiked and all her plans had derailed. That's when she remembered the dress. She'd found it in the hotel's lost and found 3 months ago, tagged for disposal. It was nothing fancy, just a simple floral print wrap dress, but something about it had caught her eye. Maybe it was the way the fabric felt soft and worn in all the right places, or maybe it was just that she couldn't remember the last time she'd owned something that wasn't chosen purely for practicality. The dress had lived in her locker ever since, waiting for, what? Some mythical day when she'd have time to do more than rush between work and school and home? But tonight, it was her only option unless she wanted to show up for her cleaning shift in scrubs, stained with various bodily fluids. 10 minutes later, Lana stood in front of the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing herself. The dress fit like it had been made for her, the hem swishing just below her knees. She'd let her hair down, the natural curls framing her face in a way that almost hid the dark circles under her eyes. For a moment, just a moment, she allowed herself to imagine a different life, one where she wore pretty dresses because she wanted to, not because she had no choice, one where she didn't have to count every penny and stretch every hour. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a message from her supervisor at the Harmony ETA. Reality crashed back in. Lana grabbed her bag, shoved her cleaning uniform inside just in case, and headed for the bus stop. The evening air held the first hint of autumn, crisp enough to raise goosebumps on her arms. She'd forgotten a jacket, but there was no time to go back. The Harmony Inn rose before her 30 minutes later, its restored Victorian architecture a stark contrast to the modern buildings surrounding it. During the day, it was beautiful in an obvious way, all carved wooden details and gleaming windows. But at night, with soft lighting spilling from its windows and casting long shadows across its face, it held a different kind of beauty, something more mysterious, more intimate. Lana slipped in through the employee entrance, ready to apologize for her unusual attire, but the back hallway was deserted. A note on the time clock informed her that her supervisor had left early due to a family emergency. Clean rooms 301, 312, VIP guest in 307, extra attention required. She gathered her supplies, grateful that at least she wouldn't have to explain her appearance to anyone. Most guests never noticed the cleaning staff anyway, and at this hour, the halls would be nearly empty. The service elevator hummed as it carried her to the third floor. Lana closed her eyes, mentally reviewing her mother's medication schedule. Had she remembered to tell Camille about the new antibiotic? The elevator doors opened, and Lana's breath caught in her throat. A man stood in the hallway, his presence so unexpected that she almost dropped her cleaning cart. He was tall, with the kind of quiet confidence that filled a space without trying. His rolled-up sleeves revealed strong forearms, and his beard was neatly trimmed, framing a face that seemed made for deep thoughts and careful words. But it was his eyes that held her, grey-blue like the ocean before a storm, and currently fixed on her with an intensity that made her forget every one of her carefully constructed walls. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice low and gentle. "I didn't mean to startle you." Lana realized she was staring and quickly stepped out of the elevator, her dress swishing around her legs. She should explain, should tell him she was just the cleaning lady in borrowed clothes. But something stopped her. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe it was the way he looked at her like she was someone worth seeing. "No apology needed," she heard herself say. "I was lost in thought. It seems like a good night for that." He smiled, just slightly, and something in Lana's chest tightened. "I'm Gideon." "Lana," she replied. And in that moment, she made a choice that would change everything. For once in her life, she decided to be just Lana, not the exhausted nursing student, not the overwhelmed caregiver, not the woman drowning in responsibilities, just Lana, in a borrowed dress, meeting a stranger's eyes in a quiet hallway, just Lana, allowing herself one moment of being seen, just Lana, not knowing that this night would be the beginning of something that would shake her carefully constructed world to its foundations. Gideon's presence seemed to fill the narrow hotel corridor, making it impossible for Lana to focus on anything else. She should walk away, start her cleaning rounds, maintain her distance, protect herself from the complications that would inevitably arise from this deception. Instead, she found herself rooted to the spot, the cleaning cart forgotten beside her. "You look lost," he said, his grey-blue eyes studying her with gentle curiosity. "Or maybe just looking for somewhere quiet to think." The kindness in his voice made her chest ache. When was the last time someone had asked about her thoughts, her needs? "Something like that," she answered, surprising herself with her honesty. "Sometimes the world gets a little too loud, you know." He nodded, and the understanding in his expression went beyond mere politeness. "I know exactly what you mean. That's why I'm here, actually." He gestured vaguely at the hotel around them. "Sometimes you need neutral ground to sort through the noise in your head." A door slammed somewhere down the hall, making Lana jump. The sound reminded her of where she was, what she was supposed to be doing. Her phone felt heavy in her dress pocket, probably filled with messages from Camille. But before she could make her excuses, Gideon spoke again. "There's a small sitting area at the end of the hall," he said, pointing toward a window-lined alcove. "It's usually empty this time of night. If you're interested in company while avoiding the world, I was heading there myself." Every practical bone in Lana's body screamed at her to decline. She had rooms to clean, a family to worry about, responsibilities that wouldn't pause just because an intriguing stranger offered conversation. But something in the way he held himself, slightly apart, as if used to keeping his own counsel, resonated with her. "Just for a few minutes," she heard herself say. The sitting area was a small marvel of comfort, with 2 plush armchairs angled toward a window that offered a view of the city lights below. Lana sank into one of the chairs, exhaustion suddenly hitting her like a physical weight. Gideon took the other chair, his movements measured and careful, like someone used to occupying space quietly. "Long day?" he asked, and there was no pity in his voice, just recognition. Lana laughed softly. "Long year." She looked out at the city lights, twinkling like earthbound stars. "Guys, but isn't that true for everyone these days?" "Some carry heavier loads than others," Gideon observed, his hand unconsciously moving to touch something beneath his shirt. A necklace, she realized, though she couldn't make out what hung on it. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the kind that feels like a conversation in itself. Lana found herself studying his profile when he wasn't looking. There was something about him that suggested depth, like still waters that ran deep. His clothes were simple but well made, a light blue button-down with the sleeves rolled up, dark jeans, and boots that had seen some miles but were well maintained. Everything about him spoke of someone who took care with the details. "What brings you to the Harmony?" he asked finally, turning those storm-cloud eyes back to her. The question sent a jolt of panic through her system. This was it, the moment to come clean, to admit she was just a cleaning lady in a borrowed dress. But when she opened her mouth, different words came out. "I needed somewhere to breathe," she said, and even though the context was a lie, the feeling behind it was painfully true. Gideon nodded as if this made perfect sense. "It's a good place for that. Private enough to feel hidden, public enough to not feel alone." He paused, considering his next words. "So I come here sometimes when my apartment feels too full of ghosts." The raw honesty in his voice caught her off guard. "Ghosts?" His hand went to the necklace again, and this time she caught a glimpse of what looked like a ring hanging from the chain. "My brother," he said simply. "He died 3 years ago. Car accident. Some days the silence in my place is too loud with his absence." Lana's heart clenched. She recognized the weight of loss in his voice, had heard similar notes in her own mother's voice when she spoke of their father. "I'm sorry," she said softly, meaning it with every fiber of her being. "Thank you." He gave her a small smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Sorry, I don't usually dump my tragic backstory on strangers in hotel corridors. Maybe that's exactly who we should tell these things to," Lana suggested. "Someone who doesn't know us well enough to handle us like glass." Something shifted in Gideon's expression, recognition, perhaps, or appreciation. "You sound like you speak from experience." Lana thought of all the careful conversations at home, everyone trying so hard not to mention how sick her mother was getting, how stretched thin their resources were. Sometimes the people closest to us try so hard to help that they forget to just listen. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and guilt flooded through her. How long had she been sitting here? She pulled it out to check. 3 messages from Camille. Mom's asking about her medicine again. Which ones were for 9 p.m? Hello? Answer your phone. Never mind. Found the chart. But seriously, where are you? Everything okay? Gideon asked, noting her expression. "Yes," Lana said quickly, too quickly. "Just work stuff." The lie tasted bitter on her tongue. He didn't press, but his eyes held a question. "You know, I never asked what you do." Panic fluttered in her chest again. "I'm studying to be a nurse," she said, clinging to the one truth she could safely share. "Noble profession," he said with genuine respect. "My brother was a doctor. He always said nurses were the ones who really ran the hospital." A shadow crossed his face at the mention of his brother, but he pushed through it. "What made you choose nursing?" The question allowed Lana to relax slightly, moving onto safer ground. "I've always been a caretaker, I guess. But more than that, I love the idea of being there for people at their most vulnerable moments. Not just treating symptoms, but seeing the whole person." She thought of her clinical rotations, the small victories and crushing defeats. There's something powerful about being able to make a difference in someone's worst day. Gideon leaned forward slightly, his expression intent. "That's exactly what Danny, my brother, used to say. He believed in treating the person, not just the condition." His voice grew softer. He would have liked you." The simple statement carried so much weight that Lana felt her eyes burn with unexpected tears. She blinked them away quickly, but not before Gideon noticed. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I didn't mean to." "No," Lana interrupted. "Don't apologize. It's been a long day, and sometimes kindness hits harder than criticism, you know." He nodded, and in that moment, something passed between them, an understanding that went beyond words. Here were 2 people who carried their burdens quietly, who understood the weight of responsibility and the price of caring too much. A clock somewhere chimed 10, the sound echoing through the quiet hallway. Reality crashed back in. She had rooms to clean, a family waiting at home, a deception that grew more dangerous with every passing minute. "I should go," she said, standing quickly. The dress swirled around her legs, a reminder of her borrowed identity. "Will you be here tomorrow?" The question seemed to surprise him as much as it did her. Lana knew she should say no, knew she should end this now, before it became something she couldn't control. But looking at him, this man who shared his pain with strangers and listened like every word mattered, she found herself nodding. "Same time?" he asked, and there was something in his voice that made her heart skip. "Same time," she agreed, already knowing she would find a way to make it work, even if it meant switching shifts or losing sleep. As she walked away, she could feel his eyes on her back, and she forced herself not to turn around. Her cleaning cart waited where she'd left it, a stark reminder of reality. She had 6 rooms to clean, a sister to text back, and a mother to check on when she got home. But for the first time in longer than she could remember, she had something else too, a promise of tomorrow, a conversation waiting to happen, a connection that felt real despite being built on a lie. The weight of her deception sat heavy in her stomach as she grabbed her cleaning supplies. But somehow, it felt worth it for those few moments of being seen, truly seen, as more than just the sum of her responsibilities. Her phone buzzed again with another message from Camille. "Mum's finally sleeping. Hope whatever's keeping you at work is worth it." Lana looked back down the hallway where Gideon had disappeared. "I hope so too," she whispered to herself, and began to clean. Morning light filtered through the cramped kitchen window of the Brooks family apartment as Lana measured medications into her mother's pill organizer. Her fingers moved with practiced precision, sorting different colors and sizes into their designated slots. The clock on the microwave blinked 5:47 a.m. She'd gotten home just 3 hours ago. "Baby, you look exhausted." Her mother's voice, though weakened by illness, still carried that same note of concern that had colored Lana's entire childhood. Patricia Brooks sat at their small kitchen table, wrapped in her favorite faded blue robe, her dark skin ashen in the early morning light. "I'm fine, Mum." Lana forced brightness into her voice as she poured a glass of water, just the usual juggling act. "Here, take these while they're fresh in your mind." Patricia accepted the pills but didn't swallow them immediately. Instead, she fixed her daughter with a knowing look. "You can't keep pushing yourself like this. I saw your schedule on the fridge. You've got clinical rotation in 2 hours." "And I'll be fine for it," Lana insisted, though her body ached with exhaustion. She couldn't remember the last time she'd slept more than 3 hours straight. But looking at her mother, thinner now than she'd ever been, with silver threading through her short-cropped hair, Lana knew she'd do it all again tonight if necessary. The sound of angry music suddenly blasted through the ceiling, followed by the thunder of footsteps. Camille's way of announcing she was awake. "Lord, give me strength," Patricia muttered, finally taking her pills. "For that girl's going to wake the whole building." "I'll talk to her," Lana said, already moving toward the stairs, but her mother's hand caught her wrist. "No, let me. You've got enough on your plate." Patricia stood slowly, her movements careful but determined. "Besides, your sister and I need to have a conversation about these attitudes she's been throwing around lately." Lana wanted to protest. Her mother needed to conserve her energy, but there was a spark in Patricia's eyes that had been missing lately. Sometimes Lana forgot that before the illness, her mother had been a force of nature, raising 2 girls alone while working 2 jobs. As her mother made her way upstairs, Lana's phone buzzed with a text from her supervisor at the Harmony. "Need you to cover tonight's shift again. Regular cleaner still out sick." Lana's heart jumped, though she told herself it was just anxiety about another double shift. It had nothing to do with a certain guest with storm cloud eyes and a gentle voice, nothing at all to do with the promise of same time tomorrow that had echoed in her head all night as she cleaned rooms. "Can do it," she typed back, ignoring the protest of her tired muscles. Upstairs, she could hear her mother's voice, firm but loving, mixing with Camille's defensive tones. The music had been turned down, at least. Lana took advantage of the moment alone to rest her forehead against the cool surface of the refrigerator. Behind her closed eyes, Gideon's face appeared, the way he'd looked at her like she was someone worth knowing, worth listening to. The guilt of her deception twisted in her stomach. "You're doing it again." Camille's voice made her jump. Her sister stood in the kitchen doorway, purple-tipped braids messy from sleep, wearing an oversized t-shirt with safety pins arranged in artistic patterns. "Doing what?" "That thing where you try to hold up the whole world by yourself." Camille moved to the coffee maker, her movements sharp with teenage frustration. Mom's worried about you. I'm worried about you, but you just keep pushing and pushing like you're some kind of superhero. Someone has to, Lana began, but Camille cut her off. No, someone doesn't have to. We're a family. We're supposed to share the load. She slammed a mug down harder than necessary. But you don't trust me to handle anything important. That's not true, Lana protested, though a small voice in her head whispered that maybe it was. You're 17, Cam. You shouldn't have to. Shouldn't have to what? Help take care of our sick mother. Handle responsibility. Newsflash, sis. I'm not a child anymore. Camille's voice cracked slightly. But you're so busy trying to protect me that you never even see me. The words hit Lana like a physical blow, especially after last night's conversation with Gideon about being truly seen. Was she doing to Camille exactly what she resented others doing to her? I see you, she said softly. I see how you help Mom when you think no one's watching. I see the way you're always checking her medication chart, even though you pretend not to care. I see the poems you write in your phone when you think we're not looking. Camille's head snapped up. You know about those. Mum's not the only one who checks on you at night. Lana managed a small smile. You're really good, you know. The one about the broken mirror and scattered light. That one stuck with me. A blush crept across Camille's cheeks, but she tried to maintain her scowl. Whatever, it's just stuff I write when I can't sleep. She poured coffee into 2 mugs, sliding one toward Lana. You look like death warmed over, by the way. How many shifts are you working now? As many as needed, Lana answered automatically, then caught herself at Camille's pointed look. I know, but the Harmony's paying double for emergency coverage, and with Mom's new medication costs, at least tell me you're getting some sleep between shifts. Lana thought of last night, of the time spent talking with Gideon instead of starting her cleaning rounds, of how she'd had to rush through her tasks afterward, barely making it home before dawn. Of course, she lied, and hated herself a little for it. Chalcha, Camille said, but there was more worry than accusation in her voice. Something's different about you lately. You've got this look. What look? Like you're carrying a secret, and not the usual, I'm pretending everything's fine, secret, something else. Lana's hand trembled slightly as she lifted her coffee mug, and she silently cursed her sister's perceptiveness. Just tired, she said. Speaking of which, I need to get ready for clinical rotation. Are you good to help Mom with breakfast? Yeah, go, do your thing. Camille waved her off, but then called after her. Hey, Lana. Yeah, thanks for seeing me. The words were quiet, almost shy. Lana felt tears prick at her eyes. Always, little sister. Even when I'm being overprotective and annoying. So, all the time then. They shared a smile, and for a moment, Lana felt the weight on her shoulders lighten just a fraction. Then her phone buzzed again, a reminder that her clinical rotation started in 90 minutes. Reality crashed back in as she headed for the shower. She had exactly 45 minutes to make herself presentable, then a full day of clinical training ahead, followed by another night shift at the Harmony. Another night of pretending to be someone she wasn't, of talking to Gideon while trying to maintain her deception. The hot water hit her tired muscles, and she leaned her forehead against the cool tile. What was she doing? This couldn't end well. Gideon was kind and genuine, offering his truth freely, while she fed him carefully constructed lies. Every moment they spent together only made the eventual revelation more painful, but even as these thoughts tumbled through her mind, she knew she would go back tonight, would watch for him in that quiet hallway, would drink in the way he looked at her like she was more than her circumstances, would store up those moments of connection like precious gems to hold against the darkness, because for the first time in years, someone was seeing just her, not the exhausted nursing student, not the overwhelmed daughter, not the overprotective sister, just Lana, in a borrowed dress, sharing midnight conversations with a man who knew how to listen to silence. The water ran cold, just like it always did after 4 minutes. Lana quickly dried off and dressed in her clinical scrubs, her movements automatic after so many similar mornings. In the kitchen, she could hear Camille and their mother talking, their voices warm with shared laughter. Her phone buzzed one final time, a text from the hospital confirming her clinical rotation, but for a moment, she allowed herself to imagine it was Gideon, reaching out across the morning light to continue their conversation from the night before. Get it together, she whispered to her reflection, as she quickly arranged her curls into a practical bun. Tati, you're playing a dangerous game. But even as she gathered her things and headed out into the morning, she knew she would be back at the Harmony tonight. Known she would watch the elevator numbers climb to the 3rd floor, her heart racing with equal parts anticipation and fear. Because sometimes, even the most responsible person needs a moment of magic, even if it's built on shifting sand. The clinical rotation had been brutal. Lana's hands trembled slightly as she changed out of her scrubs in the hospital locker room, her mind replaying the events of the day. They'd lost a patient, an elderly man who'd reminded her too much of her father in his final days. His family's grief-stricken faces haunted her as she pulled on the floral dress, now freshly washed and pressed. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from Camille. She dialed back while gathering her things, stomach clenching with worry. Finally, Camille's voice crackled through the speaker. "Where have you been?" "Clinical rotation, you know that. What's wrong? Is Mom—" "Mom's fine." "Well, not fine, but you know what I mean. Normal fine." Camille's voice dropped lower. "But the pharmacy called. They're saying the insurance denied Mom's new prescription. Something about pre-authorization. They need $486 to fill it without coverage." The number hit Lana like a physical blow. She sank onto the locker room bench, mental calculations spinning. Her last paycheck had gone entirely to rent and utilities. The Harmony's emergency coverage pay wouldn't come through for another 2 weeks. "Lana, you still there?" "Yeah, I'm here." She pressed her fingers to her temples. "Okay, listen. I've got some emergency cash hidden in the blue cookie jar, behind the recipe cards. It's not quite enough, but—" "That's your tuition money," Camille interrupted. "The money you've been saving for next semester, no way." "It's fine. I'll figure something out." Lana tried to keep her voice steady. "Mom needs her medication. That's what matters right now." "This isn't fair." Camille's voice cracked. "You shouldn't have to choose between Mom's meds and your future. I could get a job, you know. The mall is hiring and—" "No." Lana's response was automatic, fierce. "You focus on school, on your poetry, on being 17. I've got this." The silence on the other end stretched long enough that Lana checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. Finally, Camille spoke again, her voice small. "Sometimes I hate how strong you are. It makes the rest of us feel so useless." The words struck something raw in Lana's chest. "I'm not strong," she whispered. "I'm just doing what needs to be done." After ending the call, Lana sat in the empty locker room for several long minutes, trying to gather herself. Her shift at the Harmony started in 30 minutes. She should cancel, go home, deal with the pharmacy, be there for her family. But the thought of missing her promised meeting with Gideon made her chest ache in a way she wasn't ready to examine. The hospital corridors were quieting for the evening shift change as she made her way out. At the nurse's station, she nearly collided with Melody Watson. "Lana," the clinical instructor's eyes widened at the sight of the dress. "I hardly recognized you. You look different." Lana tugged self-consciously at the floral fabric. "I was going to say lovely." Melody's keen eyes studied her face. "But exhausted. That was a rough day for everyone. Are you headed home to rest?" Another lie rose automatically to Lana's lips, but something in Melody's genuine concern made her pause. "Actually, I'm headed to my other job, at the Harmony Inn." "Oh, honey." Melody's face softened with understanding. "You know, there are programs that can help. Financial assistance for nursing students, especially those with family obligations. I could help you look into—" "Thank you," Lana cut in, perhaps too quickly. "Jai, but I've got it handled, really." She hurried away before Melody could press further, guilt churning in her stomach. She knew her instructor meant well, but the thought of accepting help, of admitting she couldn't handle everything on her own, felt like admitting defeat. The evening air had turned cool and damp by the time she reached the Harmony. Her reflection in the lobby windows showed a woman she barely recognized, the dress giving her an elegance that felt borrowed, false, just like everything else about her nights here. The employee entrance was propped open, voices spilling out into the alley. Lana froze, recognizing her supervisor's tone. "Don't care what emergency came up. You can't just no-call, no-show for 3 days straight. We've had to get coverage. I told you, my kid was in the hospital." The other voice belonged to Monica, the regular night cleaner. "What was I supposed to do?" "You were supposed to communicate. I've got no choice now. We've already hired someone else for your shift." Lana's heart pounded as she pressed herself against the wall, out of sight. She shouldn't be hearing this. More importantly, she couldn't be seen. Not in this dress. Not when she was supposed to be here as emergency coverage. She waited until the voices moved away, then slipped inside through the main entrance instead. The lobby was busy with late check-ins. allowing her to blend in with the guests. The familiar weight of deception settled over her as she made her way to the elevator. Her phone buzzed. Camille again. Use the cookie jar money. Don't be mad. Mom needs her meds more than you need another semester of school right now. Lana's vision blurred with unexpected tears as the elevator doors closed. Her sister was right, of course. Their mother's health had to come first. But the thought of delaying her degree again, of pushing her dreams further into an uncertain future. The elevator chimed at the 3rd floor, and she quickly wiped her eyes. She had 6 rooms to clean and a conversation to avoid. Tonight wasn't a night for midnight confessions or stolen moments of connection. Tonight was for facing reality. But when the doors opened, Gideon was already there, leaning against the wall in what she now recognized as his usual spot. His face lit up when he saw her, then quickly shifted to concern. "Hey," he said softly. "You okay?" The gentle question nearly undid her. She wanted to tell him everything, about the patient they'd lost today, about the insurance denial, about her sister using her tuition money to buy their mother's medication, about how tired she was of being strong. Instead, she forced a smile. "Just a long day." He studied her face for a moment, then pushed off from the wall. "Come on, I want to show you something." I have to," she gestured vaguely, realizing too late that a guest wouldn't have any obligations here. "Just for a few minutes," he promised. Now, sometimes the best way to deal with a long day is to step completely outside it. Against her better judgment, she followed him down the hallway, past their usual sitting area, to a door marked Roof Access, Staff Only. Her heart jumped. She definitely wasn't supposed to be up there. "Are we allowed?" "I asked the manager earlier," Gideon said, producing a key card. Sometimes it helps to be a regular guest." The door opened to a flight of stairs, and then they were stepping out onto the roof. The city spread out before them, a tapestry of lights under the darkening sky. The air was cool and clean up here, carrying the first hints of autumn. "I found this place my first night here," Gideon said, moving to lean against the railing. "After Danny, after everything, I couldn't sleep in my own place. Too many memories. So I checked in here, thinking a change of scene would help." He glanced at her. "Ended up staying 2 weeks that first time. Now I come back whenever the silence gets too loud." Lana moved to stand beside him, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his body. "Does it help being up here?" "Sometimes." His hand went to the ring hanging from his necklace. "Up here, everything looks smaller, more manageable. Like maybe the weight we're carrying isn't quite as heavy as it feels." A sob caught in Lana's throat, unexpected and raw. She tried to swallow it back, but something in her chest had cracked open. Before she could stop them, tears were spilling down her cheeks. "Hey," Gideon said softly, turning toward her. "Whatever it is, you don't have to carry it alone." The kindness in his voice only made her cry harder, because she did have to carry it alone, because everything about this moment was built on lies, because in a few minutes she would have to go back downstairs and clean rooms while pretending to be someone she wasn't. "I'm sorry," she managed, wiping roughly at her cheeks. Don't apologize for having feelings." His voice was gentle but firm. "We all break sometimes. The trick is letting ourselves break in the right places, with the right people." She looked up at him then, really looked, in the soft light from the city below. His eyes held such genuine concern, such quiet understanding. Without thinking, she stepped closer, drawn to his steadiness like a ship to harbor. Gideon's hand came up slowly, telegraphing his movement, as if afraid of startling her. His thumb brushed away a tear from her cheek, the touch impossibly gentle. For a moment, they stood frozen in that pocket of space and time, balanced on the edge of something that felt both dangerous and inevitable. Then her phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Reality crashed back in as she saw Camille's name on the screen. "I have to go," she said quickly, stepping back. "I'm sorry, I have to go." She fled before he could respond, taking the stairs 2 at a time, her heart pounding with more than just exertion. In the 3rd-floor bathroom, she splashed cold water on her face and stared at her reflection. "What are you doing?" she whispered to herself. "This isn't your world. He isn't your world." But as she changed into her cleaning uniform in a bathroom stall, she could still feel the ghost of his touch on her cheek, still see the way he'd looked at her like she was something precious and breakable. She had rooms to clean, a family to support, and a life that didn't have room for rooftop moments with gentle-eyed men who asked nothing of her but her truth, the truth she couldn't give him. The next 3 days passed in a blur of exhaustion and stolen moments. By day, Lana moved through her clinical rotations like a ghost, running on coffee and sheer determination. By night, she cleaned rooms at the Harmony with mechanical efficiency, racing through her tasks to carve out precious minutes with Gideon. Their conversations had become a lifeline, something separate from the weight of her daily responsibilities. They talked about everything and nothing, favorite books, childhood memories, dreams both achieved and abandoned. He told her about growing up in Maine, about sailing with his brother during endless summer days. She shared carefully edited stories about raising Camille, about her passion for nursing, always dancing around the full truth of her life. But on the fourth night, everything changed. Lana arrived at the Harmony later than usual, having stayed at the hospital to help with an emergency. Her hands still trembled slightly from the adrenaline of helping stabilize a coding patient. The familiar floral dress felt like armor as she stepped into the elevator, her mind already reaching for the peace she found in Gideon's presence. The doors opened to reveal chaos. Water cascaded from the ceiling in room 307, flooding the hallway with soapy rivers. A burst pipe from the looks of it. 3 maintenance workers rushed back and forth with equipment, while her supervisor, Marcus, directed traffic. "Miss," Marcus called out, assuming she was a guest. "Sire, this floor is currently—" He stopped short, recognition dawning. "Lana, what are you wearing?" The world tilted sideways. Lana stood frozen in the elevator doorway, her careful deception crumbling around her like the waterlogged ceiling tiles. "I can explain," she started, but the words died in her throat as Gideon emerged from around the corner, phone in hand. "I've called the insurance company," he was saying to Marcus. "They'll send someone first thing tomorrow to assess the—" He stopped mid-sentence, eyes landing on Lana. For a moment, everything else faded away. The chaos, the flooding, the curious stares of maintenance workers. There was only the dawning comprehension in his storm-cloud eyes as he looked from her face to Marcus and back again. "You work here," he said softly. Not a question, a revelation. Before Lana could respond, her supervisor cut in. "Lana, get changed and start on damage control in 309. We need to move guests from the affected rooms." He turned to Gideon. "Mr. Hale, we'll have you relocated to the 5th floor immediately." Mr. Hale. Of course, he wasn't just a guest. He was a regular, probably someone important. Someone who'd trusted her with his grief, his memories, pieces of himself she had no right to claim. "I'll handle 309, another cleaner called out, already pushing past with towels and cleaning supplies. Lana remained rooted to the spot, water soaking into her shoes. She watched as understanding transformed Gideon's face, confusion giving way to hurt, then something harder to read. "Gideon," she managed, taking a step forward. "Please, let me—" "Don't." The word was quiet, but firm. He turned to Marcus. I'll pack my things." Lana stood helpless as he disappeared back into his room. Around her, the chaos continued, workers shouting instructions, guests being evacuated, her supervisor barking orders. But all she could hear was the roaring in her ears, the sound of her carefully constructed fantasy world shattering. "Lana!" Marcus's sharp voice cut through her daze. "Either get in uniform and help, or clock out. But standing there looking pretty isn't solving our crisis." The words stung like a slap. She fled to the employee locker room, changed mechanically into her cleaning uniform, and spent the next 4 hours helping with flood cleanup. Every movement felt automatic, disconnected from herself. She kept expecting, hoping, Gideon would appear again, would let her explain. But he had already been moved to the 5th floor, taking with him any chance she had of making this right. It was nearly 3 a.m. when she finally trudged home, smelling of wet carpet and industrial cleaner. The apartment was dark except for a soft light spilling from the kitchen. She found Camille at the table, surrounded by textbooks and empty coffee mugs. "You look like hell," her sister said by way of greeting. Then, noting Lana's expression, "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Lana moved to the sink, needing something to do with her hands. "So why are you still up? AP physics test tomorrow, but don't change the subject." Camille's voice softened. "You've been different lately, lighter somehow, even with everything going on, and now you look like someone died." The concern in her sister's voice cracked something in Lana's chest. Before she could stop herself, the whole story came pouring out. The dress, the conversations with Gideon, the lies, tonight's disaster. Camille listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from surprise to understanding to sympathy. "So he was your escape," she said finally. "Your way of being someone else for a little while." I didn't mean for it to happen. Lana sank into a kitchen chair, suddenly exhausted beyond words. It felt so good to be seen as something other than everyone's rock for once. To talk to someone who didn't need anything from me except conversation. But he did see you, Camille pointed out. The real you. The parts about being a nursing student, caring for people, understanding loss. That was all true, wasn't it? Maybe. But I lied about everything else. I let him think I was... She gestured helplessly at herself, at her now soaked cleaning uniform. Not this. This? Camille's voice took on an edge. So you mean someone who works harder than anyone I know, who's putting herself through nursing school while taking care of our whole family, who wears herself to the bone, making sure everyone else is okay. She reached across the table, grabbing Lana's hand. Sis, that's not something to be ashamed of. Tears burned in Lana's eyes. You don't understand. The way he looked at me when he realized, like I'd stolen something from him, and maybe I did. He shared so much with me, real things about his brother, his grief, and I gave him nothing but lies in return. Not nothing, Camille insisted. You gave him someone who listened, who understood. That wasn't a lie, was it? Before Lana could respond, a sound from upstairs made them both freeze. Their mother's cough, followed by movement. I've got it, Camille said, standing quickly. You look dead on your feet. Get some sleep. But nothing. Let me be the strong one for once, okay? Lana watched her sister climb the stairs, moving with quiet confidence she hadn't noticed before. When had Camille grown up so much? How many other things had she missed while trying to carry the world on her shoulders? In her tiny bedroom, Lana peeled off her damp uniform and pulled on an oversized t-shirt. The floral dress hung in her closet like a ghost of possibilities, a reminder of the person she'd pretended to be. But as she lay in bed, staring at the water stains on her ceiling, she couldn't help wondering if Camille was right. Had it all been a lie? Or had she finally shown someone her truth, just wrapped in prettier packaging? Her phone lit up with a text from Marcus. Need you to cover 5th floor tomorrow night. Regular cleaner called in sick. 5th floor, where Gideon had been relocated. Her fingers hovered over the phone as exhaustion and longing warred inside her. She could say no, should say no, go back to her normal routine, normal shifts, normal life. But even as she thought it, she was typing, I'll be there. Because maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance to make things right, to show him that the person he'd talked to on quiet nights, the one who understood loss and duty and dreams deferred, was real, even if the packaging had been false. Or maybe she just needed one more chance to say goodbye to the version of herself she'd discovered in those midnight conversations. The version who could exist without the weight of the world on her shoulders. The version who had dared to believe, just for a moment, that she deserved something that belonged only to her. Sleep claimed her eventually, but her dreams were full of storm cloud eyes and the sound of running water, washing away everything she'd tried so hard to build. The 5th floor of the Harmony Inn felt like another world. While the 3rd floor had been all Victorian charm and warm woods, this level gleamed with modern luxury, all chrome, glass, and sophisticated lighting. Lana pushed her cleaning cart down the silent hallway, feeling more out of place than ever in her practical uniform. She'd spent her entire shift working up the courage to approach Gideon's room, 507, according to the assignment sheet. Now, standing before his door, her hand trembled as she raised it to knock. No answer. She checked her watch. 11:47 p.m., their usual meeting time. Her throat tightened as she remembered all those conversations in the 3rd floor sitting area, the way his voice would soften when talking about his brother, how his eyes would crinkle at the corners when she made him laugh. He's not in. Lana spun around to find an elderly guest watching her from the doorway of 508. The woman wore an elegant silk robe and a knowing expression. The handsome one from 507, the woman continued. He checked out this afternoon. Rather abruptly. If you ask me, shame. He's been such a pleasant neighbor these past few weeks. Checked out. The words hit Lana like a physical blow. Of course he had. What else had she expected? Thank you, she managed, turning back to her cart. The cleaning supplies blurred as tears threatened to fall. Dear. The woman's voice was gentler now. Whatever happened between you two, and something clearly did given how you're looking at that door, maybe it's not too late to fix it. He left this behind. She held out a book. Lana recognized it immediately. The collection of ocean poems they'd discussed during one of their late-night talks. He'd quoted from it while describing sailing with his brother, his voice full of remembered joy. He asked the front desk to donate it, the woman explained, but I thought, Well, sometimes the universe gives us second chances if we're brave enough to take them. Lana accepted the book with trembling hands. A business card fell from between its pages. Gideon's card. Simple, elegant text identified him as the executive director of the Hale Foundation for Medical Research. The floor seemed to tilt beneath her feet. Not just a regular guest, then. Someone important. Someone who probably sat on boards and attended galas and moved through a world as far from her reality as the moon from the earth. "Thank you," she whispered again, clutching the book to her chest. The woman smiled kindly. "You know, I've been watching him these past weeks. He's stayed here often, always alone, always carrying such sadness. But lately he'd started to smile. Real smiles, the kind that reach the eyes. Whatever you did to cause that, it meant something." Before Lana could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from Camille. 911, Mom's fever is back. Need you home now. Fear shot through her system, instantly overwhelming all other emotions. "I'm sorry, I have to..." "Go," the woman said, understanding immediately. Family first. Lana practically ran to the employee locker room, changed in record time, and caught the first bus home. The entire ride, her knee bounced with anxiety as she tried calling Camille repeatedly. No answer. She found their apartment blazing with light, the front door unlocked. Inside, voices drifted down from upstairs. Not panicked ones, she realized with relief, but the steady tones of medical professionals. Melody Watson stood at the foot of the stairs, holding a medical bag. "What are you?" Lana started. "Your sister called the hospital looking for you," Melody explained. "I recognized her description of your mother's symptoms and came straight over. Don't worry, Dr. Rivera is with her now. We caught the infection early this time." Lana sagged against the wall, still clutching Gideon's book. "I should have been here." "You can't be everywhere at once, honey." Melody's eyes were kind but firm. "And you've got good backup. Your sister handled everything perfectly, called for help, had all your mother's medical history ready, knew exactly what medications she's taking." As if summoned by her name, Camille appeared at the top of the stairs. Her purple-tipped braids were messy, and her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady. "Mom's asking for you." Lana took the stairs 2 at a time. Their mother lay propped up in bed, looking pale but alert. Dr. Rivera, a young resident Lana recognized from her clinical rotations, was just finishing up her examination. "Good news," the doctor said, packing away her stethoscope. "We've caught this flare-up early. I'm adjusting her antibiotics, but she should be fine with proper rest and monitoring." She handed Lana a prescription. "The hospital's outpatient pharmacy can fill this tonight if you go now." "I've already called it in." Lana stared at the prescription, her mind racing. The pharmacy copay would clean out what little was left in her emergency fund, but that didn't matter. What mattered was getting the medication before the infection could worsen. "I'll go," Camille said, plucking the prescription from Lana's hand. "You stay with Mom." "But I've got this." Camille's chin lifted with determination. "Besides, you look like you're about to collapse. When's the last time you actually slept?" Before Lana could argue, Melody stepped in. "I'll drive Camille to the pharmacy. You two catch your breath. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do is let others help." Patricia reached for Lana's hand as the others left. "Come here, baby. Tell me what's really going on with you." "Mom, you don't need to worry about..." "I'm your mother. Worrying about you is my job." She patted the bed beside her. "And something's been weighing on you lately. More than usual." Lana sank onto the bed, suddenly bone-tired. The book she'd been clutching fell into her lap, its presence a reminder of everything she'd lost tonight. "Who's G? Hale?" her mother asked, spotting the business card peeking from between the pages. And just like that, the whole story came pouring out. The dress, the late-night conversations, the connection she'd found and lost. Her mother listened without interrupting, her hand stroking Lana's hair like she used to do when Lana was small. "Oh, my sweet girl," she said when Lana finished, "always taking care of everyone else, never leaving any room to take care of your own heart." "It doesn't matter now anyway," Lana said, wiping her eyes. "He's gone, and he probably thinks I'm some kind of fraud." "Is that what you think? That you're a fraud?" Her mother's voice was gentle but probing. "Because from what you've told me, the only thing you lied about was your job. Everything else, your compassion, your intelligence, your ability to listen and understand, that was all real. But I let him think I was more than what? More than a hard-working young woman putting herself through nursing school. More than a devoted daughter and sister. More than someone who gives everything she has to help others. Patricia's voice strengthened with conviction. Baby, you didn't let him think you were more than you are. You just finally let someone see exactly who you are, without all the responsibilities weighing you down. Lana stared at the book in her lap, at the elegant business card marking a page of ocean poems. It doesn't matter now, he's gone. Maybe, her mother said thoughtfully, or maybe this is where your story really begins. The part where you decide if you're brave enough to show someone your whole truth, not just the pretty parts or the hard parts, but all of it. I wouldn't even know where to find him. Patricia picked up the business card, examining it in the soft lamplight. Seems to me you've got his address right here. The question is, are you ready to be as honest with him as you've always been with yourself? Before Lana could respond, they heard the front door open, followed by Camille's voice calling up the stairs. Got the meds, and Melody's insisting on making us all some real food. Says hospital cafeteria sandwiches don't count as dinner. Go on, Patricia said, squeezing Lana's hand. Help your sister, but promise me you'll think about what I said. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is let someone see us exactly as we are. No more, no less. Lana stood, tucking the book and business card into her pocket. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. Now go make sure your sister and Melody aren't destroying my kitchen. As Lana descended the stairs, the weight of the book seemed to burn in her pocket like a promise, or perhaps a challenge. Her mother was right. The question wasn't whether she could find Gideon. The question was whether she was brave enough to finally show him her whole truth and trust that it might be enough. The Hale Foundation occupied the top floor of a gleaming downtown office building. Lana stood in the lobby, clutching Gideon's book like a shield. She'd traded her usual practical clothes for a simple blue dress borrowed from Melody, professional but still authentically her, with comfortable flats and her natural curls framing her face. Can I help you? The security guard's voice was polite but firm. I'm here to see Gideon Hale. The words came out steadier than she felt. I don't have an appointment, but Mr. Hale isn't taking unscheduled visitors. The guard's expression softened slightly at whatever he saw in her face. You can leave a message with reception if you'd like. Lana's fingers tightened on the book. She'd spent 3 days working up the courage to come here, practicing what she'd say. She couldn't leave now with just a message. Please, she said quietly, tell him Lana Brooks is here. From the Harmony Inn. I have something of his and I owe him the truth. The guard studied her for a long moment, then picked up his phone. Lana held her breath as he spoke quietly into the receiver. After what felt like eternity, he nodded. 15th floor. Reception will direct you. The elevator ride gave her too much time to think. What if he refused to see her? What if he did see her, but only to tell her how deeply she'd disappointed him? Her reflection in the polished doors showed a woman trying very hard to look braver than she felt. The elevator opened directly into the Foundation's reception area, all clean lines and muted colors, with large windows overlooking the city. An elegant woman at the desk looked up as Lana approached. Miss Brooks, Mr. Hale is in a meeting, but he'll be available shortly. Please, have a seat. Lana sank into one of the sleek chairs, acutely aware of how out of place she felt. The walls were lined with photographs, medical researchers at work, children in hospitals, scenes that spoke of hope and healing. One photo caught her eye, a younger Gideon with his arm around a man who had to be his brother Danny, both of them grinning on what looked like a sailboat. That was taken 2 months before the accident. Lana turned to find Gideon standing in a doorway, his expression unreadable. He looked different here, more polished in his tailored suit, but also somehow less real than the man who'd shared midnight conversations about poetry and loss. I brought your book, she said, standing quickly. You left it at the hotel. Keep it. His voice was cool, professional. Was that all? No. Lana took a deep breath. I owe you an explanation and an apology. He studied her for a moment, then gestured toward his office. Come in. His office was unexpectedly warm. Dark woods and comfortable furniture softening the corporate aesthetic. One wall was entirely windows, offering a stunning view of the city, but what caught Lana's attention was his desk, covered in medical research papers, grant proposals, and a framed photo of Danny in his doctor's coat. You're running a medical research foundation, she said softly, pieces clicking into place. That's why you were staying at the Harmony. It's near the hospital district. We're funding several clinical trials there." He leaned against his desk, arms crossed. But you didn't come here to discuss my work." "No." Lana forced herself to meet his eyes. "I came to tell you that I'm sorry, not just for letting you think I was a guest, but for not trusting you with the truth, which was that I'm a nursing student working multiple jobs to support my family, that I clean rooms at the Harmony to help pay for my mother's medical bills and my sister's college fund, that I found that dress in the lost and found, and for a few nights, it let me pretend I could be someone who didn't carry the weight of the world on her shoulders." The words tumbled out, raw and honest. "But the person you talked to, who understood loss and duty and dreams, that was real. I never lied about who I am, only about my circumstances." Something flickered in his expression, pain or recognition. She couldn't tell which. "Why didn't you just tell me?" "Because for the first time in years, someone was seeing me as just me, not as the responsible daughter, or the overwhelmed student, or the girl trying to hold everything together. Just Lana," she swallowed hard. "And I was afraid that if you knew the whole truth, that would change. Like I'm some kind of elitist who would look down on someone for working hard." There was an edge to his voice now. "No, that's not—" Lana ran a frustrated hand through her curls. "It wasn't about you, it was about me, about my own insecurities, about being afraid that the real me, the one who works as a cleaner and lives in a tiny apartment and can barely keep her head above water, wasn't enough." "Wasn't enough for what?" "For someone like you." The admission cost her, but she forced herself to continue. "Someone who runs a foundation and probably changes lives every day and moves through a world I can barely imagine." Gideon was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the city below. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer. "Did you know what Danny did at the hospital before the accident?" The sudden change of subject threw her. "He was a doctor, a resident in the emergency department. He used to come home with stories about the nurses who kept everything running, who noticed when patients were crashing before the monitors went off, who held families together during their worst moments." He turned back to her. "He always said they were the real heroes of the hospital, that while doctors swooped in for the big moments, nurses were there for all the small ones that made the difference between surviving and healing." Hope flickered in Lana's chest, but she forced herself to stay still, to let him finish. "The night he died," Gideon continued, "he was driving home after a double shift, fell asleep at the wheel. I was supposed to pick him up, but I had a board meeting that ran late. Some big donor dinner I couldn't miss." His laugh was bitter. "All that important foundation work you think makes me special. It's just my way of trying to continue what he started, of trying to make his death mean something." "It does mean something," Lana said softly. "The work you do here, the lives you change, that matters." "Maybe," he met her eyes, "but so does the work you do. Cleaning rooms to put yourself through nursing school, taking care of your family. Those aren't things to be ashamed of, Lana. They're things to be proud of." Tears pricked at her eyes. "I never meant to hurt you." "I know." He pushed off from his desk, taking a step toward her. "And I shouldn't have run away from the Harmony like that. It's just, when I realized you'd been lying, it hit too close to home. Reminded me of all the lies I tell myself about being okay, about having moved on from losing Danny. We all lie to ourselves sometimes," Lana said. "Tell ourselves we're fine when we're breaking inside, that we can handle everything alone. But you're not alone, are you?" His voice was gentle now. "I saw how that clinical instructor came to help your family the other night, how your sister stepped up. Sometimes letting people see our struggles is the bravest thing we can do." Lana's breath caught. "You knew about my mother. I had the concierge check if you were okay when you didn't come back to the 5th floor that night." A faint smile touched his lips. "Guess I wasn't ready to let go either. I wanted to explain everything then," she admitted. "But by the time things calmed down at home, you were gone. Not gone." He took another step closer. "Just hiding in my own version of a borrowed dress. This suit, this office, sometimes they feel just as much like a costume as your flowers." They were close enough now that Lana could see the flecks of blue in his grey eyes, could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "So where does that leave us?" "I think," he said slowly, "it leaves us with a choice. We can either go back to our separate worlds of pretending we're fine alone, or we can try again, this time with no borrowed dresses, no corporate masks, just us exactly as we are." Lana's heart thundered in her chest. "I have clinicals most evenings, and I still have to work at the Harmony to make ends meet, and my family. I have board meetings that run late," he countered, "and days when I can barely look at Danny's picture without breaking. And sometimes I hide out in hotels because my apartment feels too empty. We're kind of a mess, aren't we? But she was smiling now, really smiling. Maybe. He reached out, slowly enough that she could pull away if she wanted to, and tucked a curl behind her ear. But maybe that's okay. Maybe that's exactly what we both need. Someone who understands that healing isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. I can do real, Lana whispered. I'm tired of pretending anyway. Good. His hand lingered on her cheek. Because I have a proposition for you. Oh, have dinner with me. Not at the Harmony. Not in some fancy restaurant where we both feel like imposters. Just dinner. Maybe at that little Ethiopian place near the hospital where the nurses hang out. I hear they have amazing coffee. Lana laughed, the sound full of relief and hope and something that felt dangerously like joy. You've been checking up on me. Maybe a little. His smile reached his eyes now, crinkling the corners in the way she'd missed so much. So, what do you say? Ready to try being real together? Instead of answering, Lana reached up and touched the ring hanging from his necklace. Tell me about him. About the real Danny, not just the ghost you carry. Understanding flickered in Gideon's eyes. She wasn't just accepting his dinner invitation. She was accepting all of it. The grief, the complexity, the beautiful mess of being exactly who they were. I'd like that, he said softly. And maybe you can tell me about your family. The real story, not the edited version. It's not always a pretty story. Neither is mine. He took her hand, his fingers warm and solid against hers. But I think maybe that's the point. Real love, whether it's for family or something else, isn't about being pretty. It's about being true. And there in his sunlit office, surrounded by reminders of loss and hope and healing, Lana finally felt the weight of pretense fall away. She wasn't the girl in the borrowed dress anymore. She wasn't just the responsible daughter or the struggling student. She was simply herself, and for the first time, that felt like enough. The Ethiopian restaurant was exactly as unpretentious as Gideon had promised. Tucked between a laundromat and a pharmacy near the hospital, its worn exterior gave way to a warm, spice-scented interior. Lana sat across from Gideon at a small corner table, both of them still in their work clothes, she in her practical scrubs from clinical rotation, he in a slightly rumpled suit with his tie loosened. "So this is what real looks like," she said, smiling as she watched him struggle to eat injera bread with his fingers. A drop of spicy stew landed on his crisp white shirt. Less dignified than our midnight conversations, he raised an eyebrow, dabbing at the stain. More human. Lana demonstrated the proper technique for wrapping the bread around the stewed vegetables. Sometimes messy is better than perfect. They'd been meeting like this for a week now, stolen hours between her clinical rotations and his foundation work, learning each other all over again. No more borrowed dresses or corporate masks. Just two people sharing meals and truths and the occasional awkward moment. "Speaking of messy," Gideon said, finally mastering the bread-folding technique, "how's your mother doing?" "Better, actually. The new antibiotics are working, and Melody, my clinical instructor, has been amazing. She helped us connect with a patient advocacy program that's covering some of the medication costs. And you're still working at the Harmony, 3 nights a week." Lana met his eyes steadily, refusing to feel ashamed. "It's good money, and we need it. But I'm on the 2nd floor now, less complicated." Gideon reached across the table, taking her hand. His fingers were warm and slightly messy from the food. "You know, the Foundation has a scholarship program for nursing students, especially those interested in emergency medicine." Lana stiffened slightly. "I'm not looking for charity." "It's not charity." His voice was gentle but firm. "It's an investment in exactly the kind of nurse Danny always said the world needs more of. Someone who understands both sides of the hospital experience, the medical and the human." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from Camille. "Found something in Mum's closet you need to see. Come home when you can." Worry creased Lana's forehead as she showed Gideon the message. "I should go," he said immediately. "I'll get this boxed up for you to take home." The easy understanding in his voice made her heart squeeze. "Come with me?" The question seemed to surprise them both. They hadn't quite reached that stage yet. Meeting families, merging worlds, but Gideon's face softened. "Are you sure?" "Yes," Lana said, realizing she meant it. "It's time you saw the real version of my world too." 20 minutes later, they stood outside her apartment building. It wasn't much. A tired brick structure with window air conditioning units hanging like afterthoughts, but the small garden out front was well tended, and children's chalk drawings decorated the sidewalk. It's not exactly the harmony, Lana said, suddenly self-conscious. Gideon squeezed her hand. It's home. That makes it better than any hotel. They climbed the stairs to her family's third-floor apartment. Lana could hear music drifting from inside. Not Camille's usual loud rebellion, but something softer, older, jazz. She opened the door to find her mother sitting in her favorite armchair, going through an old photo album. Camille sat cross-legged on the floor beside her, surrounded by boxes and what looked like vintage clothing. "Baby, look what we found." Patricia's voice was stronger than it had been in weeks. "Your father's old records. And, oh," she stopped short, noticing Gideon. "Mom, Camille, this is Gideon." Lana's voice only shook slightly. "Gideon, my family." A moment of silence stretched between them. Then Camille grinned. So you're the guy my sister's been pretending not to moon over for weeks." "Camille." Lana and Patricia spoke in unison, but Gideon laughed, a real laugh that seemed to break the tension in the room. "Guilty as charged." He stepped forward, offering his hand first to Patricia, then to Camille. "It's an honor to finally meet you both." Patricia studied him with the keen eye of a mother who'd raised 2 daughters alone. "You're the one from the foundation? The one funding research at Boston General?" "Yes, Ma'am. Though these days I'm mainly known as the guy your daughter had to rescue from embarrassing himself with Ethiopian food." Something in Patricia's expression softened. "Well, don't just stand there. Come see what we found." Camille, baby, put on another record. Soon they were all settled in the small living room, the warm crackle of vinyl filling the air with jazz classics. Patricia showed them photos of Lana's father, a tall man with kind eyes and Camille's artistic spirit, always captured mid-laugh or mid-song. He was a session musician, Patricia explained to Gideon, played saxophone for anyone who'd hire him, didn't make much money, but he filled this place with music and love. "That's where Camille gets her creativity," Lana added, watching her sister reverently handle their father's old records. "And where you get your heart," her mother corrected. "Always taking care of everyone, just like him." Gideon's hand found Lana's, squeezing gently. She could feel him taking in every detail, the worn but clean furniture, the medical textbooks stacked beside fashion magazines, the way 3 women had built a life around each other's strengths. "Oh!" Camille suddenly exclaimed, pulling something from one of the boxes. "Sat, this is what I wanted to show you, Lana." She held up a dress, vintage 1950s by the look of it, all flowing lines and faded floral print, different from the one from the Harmony, but somehow carrying the same kind of magic. "It was your grandmother's," Patricia said softly. "She wore it the night she met your grandfather at a jazz club, said it was her lucky dress." "Try it on," Camille insisted, holding it out to Lana. Lana hesitated, looking at Gideon. The last time she'd worn a dress like that around him. "You should," he said quietly. "Some dresses aren't about pretending to be someone else. They're about honoring who you've always been." With trembling fingers, Lana took the dress and slipped into the bathroom to change. The fabric settled around her like a blessing, fitting as if it had been made for her. When she emerged, the look on Gideon's face made her breath catch. Not because he was seeing her as someone different, but because he was seeing her completely. "Dance with me," he asked, standing and holding out his hand as a slow jazz number filled the room. "I'm not very good at—" "Neither am I." His smile was soft. "But maybe that's okay. Maybe we're both tired of trying to be good at everything." As they swayed together in her family's small living room, surrounded by pieces of her history and fragments of her present, Lana felt something shift inside her. The weight she'd carried for so long didn't disappear, but it changed, became lighter, more manageable, shared. "Thank you," she whispered against Gideon's shoulder. "For what?" "For wanting to know all of me. The messy parts and the complicated parts, the parts that come with family and responsibility, and dreams that sometimes feel too big." He pulled back slightly to look at her, his storm cloud eyes serious. "Thank you for showing me, for reminding me that real life, real love isn't about perfection. It's about finding beauty in the complexity." From her chair, Patricia watched them with knowing eyes. Camille pretended to gag at the romance of it all, but her smile was genuine, and somewhere in the groove of an old record, their father's music played on, a melody of family and memory and new beginnings. Later, after Gideon had gone and Camille had retreated to her room, Patricia caught Lana's hand as she was putting away the photo albums. "That's a good man," she said simply. "He sees you." "The real me," Lana agreed. Finally, "Baby, there was never anything wrong with the real you. Sometimes we just need someone to remind us of that." Lana touched the soft fabric of her grandmother's dress, thinking of all the women in her family who had worn it before her. Women who had loved and lost and kept going, who had built beauty out of struggle. You know, she said slowly, I think maybe that's what love really is. Not finding someone who makes everything perfect, but finding someone who makes the imperfect parts of life feel like exactly where you're supposed to be. Patricia smiled, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Your father would have loved him, you know, would have seen how he looks at you like you're both the question and the answer. And for the first time in years, the mention of her father didn't bring just pain. It brought hope, hope that love could survive loss, that families could rebuild, that hearts could heal without forgetting, that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is let ourselves be seen, completely and without pretense, by someone who chooses to stay anyway. 3 weeks had passed since the night of jazz and family memories, and autumn had fully claimed the city. Lana hurried through the hospital corridors, her mind racing faster than her feet. She was running late for her final clinical evaluation, the one that would determine if she could graduate next semester. Breathe, Melody's voice caught her at the nurse's station. You've got this. Lana managed a shaky smile as she grabbed her patient charts. Easy for you to say? You're not the one being evaluated on 6 months of work in the next hour. No, I'm just the one doing the evaluating. Melody's eyes twinkled. And I've watched you grow from a tired student into someone who could run this floor in her sleep. Now go show Dr. Rivera what I already know. The evaluation was a blur of questions, demonstrations, and patient interactions. Lana moved through them on autopilot, her body remembering what her nervous mind might have forgotten. Check vital signs, assess pain levels, document everything. Listen, really listen, to what patients weren't saying as much as what they were. Impressive work with the patient in 204, Dr. Rivera said afterward, making final notes on her evaluation form. Most students miss the early signs of anxiety, but you picked up on his distress before it escalated. His hands were shaking when he talked about going home, Lana explained, and he kept asking the same questions about his medication, even though we'd gone over it 3 times. Sometimes fear looks like forgetfulness. The doctor nodded approvingly. So that's exactly the kind of insight we need in emergency medicine. Have you considered specializing? Actually, Lana took a deep breath. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. I've been offered a scholarship for emergency nursing training. The Hale Foundation program? At Lana's surprised look, Dr. Rivera smiled. I'm on the selection committee. Your application was outstanding, though I have to admit, I was surprised you finally submitted one. I needed to prove to myself I could do this on my own first, Lana said quietly, that I deserved it based on merit, not other factors. Understanding flickered in the doctor's eyes. Everyone in the hospital knew about Lana's relationship with Gideon now. It was hard to keep secrets in a place where gossip traveled faster than lab results, but to her relief, no one had questioned her abilities or suggested favoritism. If anything, she'd worked harder to prove herself. Well, speaking as someone who reviewed your application, Dr. Rivera said, handing over the completed evaluation form, you more than earned it. Congratulations, Ms. Brooks. You'll make an excellent emergency nurse. Lana's hands trembled as she read the evaluation. Perfect scores across the board. All those nights of studying while her mother slept, all those double shifts at the Harmony, all the times she'd wondered if she was trying to do too much. It had all led to this moment. Her phone buzzed with a text from Gideon. Done with your evaluation. I'm in the cafeteria with contraband real coffee. She found him at their usual table, 2 steaming cups from their Ethiopian place sitting like promises. He stood when he saw her, his eyes searching her face. Say well. In answer, she held up the evaluation form. His face broke into a brilliant smile as he read it. I never doubted you for a second, he said, pulling her into a hug that smelled of coffee and his familiar cologne. Though I did doubt whether the hospital coffee would be enough to celebrate with. Hence the contraband. She settled into the chair across from him, wrapping her hands around the warm cup. Say hence the contraband. He watched her take a sip, his expression turning serious. Have you thought more about the scholarship? I have. Lana met his eyes steadily. And I'm accepting it. Not because of us, but because I've earned it. Because emergency medicine is where I can do the most good. Danny would have loved working with you, Gideon said softly. He always said the best emergency workers were the ones who understood that crisis moments aren't just medical events. They're human ones. Speaking of human moments, Lana reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. This came today. Gideon opened it carefully, reading the formal letter inside. His eyes widened. The Harmony is offering you a patient care coordinator position. Part-time, working with guests who have family in the hospital. She couldn't keep the excitement from her voice. Apparently, someone put in a good word about my ability to handle both the practical and emotional sides of medical situations. Marcus, he said after watching me juggle cleaning rooms, nursing school, and family responsibilities, he couldn't think of anyone better to help guests navigate hospital stays. She paused, taking another sip of coffee. I start next week. No more cleaning uniforms. No more borrowed dresses. You never needed them, you know. Gideon reached across the table, taking her hand. You were always exactly who you needed to be. Maybe, but I needed to learn that for myself. She squeezed his fingers. Just like you needed to learn that running a foundation doesn't mean you have to be perfect, that grieving for Danny doesn't make you weak. We're quite a pair, aren't we? His thumb traced patterns on her palm. I'm both trying so hard to be strong that we almost missed the chance to be real. Almost, Lana agreed, but not quite. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, drinking their coffee and watching hospital staff hurry past. This place had become their middle ground. Not quite his world of boardrooms and research grants. Not quite her world of night shifts and family responsibilities. Something new they were building together. Fire Camille's poetry showcases tonight, Lana said finally. She's performing that piece about Dad's records and Mom's resilience. Will you come? Wouldn't miss it. Gideon's eyes crinkled at the corners. Though I should warn you, I invited some people from the Foundation's Arts Education program. Her piece about intergenerational healing through music. That's exactly the kind of perspective we need for our community outreach. Lana stared at him. You didn't. I did. But only after Melody mentioned that Camille had been asking about scholarship opportunities for creative writing programs. He held up his hands at her expression. I promise no special treatment. Just opening doors that her talent can walk through. Tears pricked at Lana's eyes. You know, when I first met you, I thought you were just a kind stranger in a hotel corridor. Then I thought you were some corporate executive, too far removed from real life to understand struggle. Now I'm realizing you're something else entirely. Oh, his voice was soft. What's that? Someone who sees people, really sees them, who understands that healing comes in many forms, that sometimes the best way to honor those we've lost is to help those still finding their way. Gideon's face softened with emotion. Danny used to say that medicine isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about creating spaces where healing can happen naturally. Is that what we've done? Lana asked quietly. Created a space where we could both heal, I think, he said, standing and offering her his hand. We've done something even better. We've created a space where we can be completely ourselves, scars, struggles, dreams and all. As they walked out of the hospital together, Lana thought about all the versions of herself she'd been over the past months. The exhausted student, the midnight dreamer in a borrowed dress, the daughter carrying too much weight, the nurse finding her calling. Each one had been real, each one part of her truth. But here now, walking hand in hand with a man who knew all her stories and chose to be part of them anyway, she finally felt like her whole self. No masks, no pretense, no need to be anything other than exactly who she was. And that, she realized, was the greatest gift they'd given each other. Not the absence of struggle or the promise of perfection, but the freedom to be authentically, messily, beautifully human together. The Harmony Inn's third floor looked different in daylight. Lana stood in the familiar hallway, now as the patient care coordinator rather than a cleaner, watching sunlight stream through the Victorian windows. 6 months had passed since she'd first met Gideon here, both of them hiding behind carefully constructed facades. Ready for this? Melody asked, adjusting her nursing uniform. They'd arranged to meet here before heading to Lana's graduation ceremony. Almost. Lana smoothed down her graduation dress, her grandmother's lucky dress, altered by Camille's careful hands to suit a new generation. Just need to check on one more patient family. Room 307, the same room where everything had fallen apart that night of the flood, now housed the parents of a child recovering from surgery at Boston General. Lana knocked softly before entering. Mrs. Reeves, just checking if you need anything before I head out. The evening coordinator will be here soon. The tired mother looked up from her laptop with a grateful smile. We're fine, thanks to you. Having someone who understands both the medical and emotional sides of all this, it's made such a difference. I had good teachers, Lana said. thinking of her own mother's hospital stays, of Danny's legacy living on through Gideon's work. Sometimes the hardest part is feeling alone in the struggle. After ensuring the family had everything they needed, Lana met Melody in the hallway. They walked together to the elevator, the same one where she'd first stepped out in that borrowed floral dress, never imagining how that night would change everything. "Nervous about the ceremony?" Melody asked as they descended. "A little." Lana touched the acceptance letter in her pocket, her official offer to join Boston General's emergency department after graduation. Mostly excited. The lobby was busy with late spring tourists, but Lana's attention was caught by the small group waiting near the entrance. Her mother sat in her wheelchair, looking stronger than she had in months, dressed in a new blue suit they'd finally been able to afford. Camille stood beside her, purple hair now accompanied by an acceptance letter of her own, a full scholarship to study creative writing and performance art. And there was Gideon, somehow looking both perfectly put together in his suit and absolutely real. The ring that had once hung around his neck was now displayed in a small frame in his office, alongside Danny's doctor's coat. No longer a weight to carry, but a memory to honor. "There's my girl." Patricia's voice was strong and clear as Lana approached. "Look at you in your grandmother's dress." "Camille did amazing work with the alterations," Lana said, twirling once to show how the vintage fabric now moved freely while maintaining its elegant lines. "Well, I had to make sure my big sister looked perfect for graduation." Camille's attempt at a casual tone couldn't hide her pride. "Even if she's just going to cover it up with that boring gown." "Speaking of which," Gideon pulled a garment bag from behind his back. "I believe you'll need this." Lana unzipped the bag to reveal her graduation gown and hood, the nursing school colors bright against the black fabric. Her eyes stung with sudden tears as her fingers traced the embroidered caduceus. "We did it," she whispered, looking at her family. "All of us? You did it," her mother corrected gently. "We just loved you through it." "Sometimes that's the most important part." Gideon's voice was soft as he helped Lana into her graduation gown. "Having people who believe in you, even when you're not sure you believe in yourself." As they headed out to the cars, Melody driving Patricia and Camille, Gideon and Lana following in his car, Lana took one last look at the harmony. This place where she'd once tried to become someone else had instead helped her become more fully herself. "Penny, for your thoughts?" Gideon asked as they drove toward the university. "Just thinking about the first night we met, how scared I was of letting anyone see the real me." She turned to look at him. "Thank you for seeing me anyway. Thank you for showing me it was okay to be seen too." He caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. "For helping me understand that strength isn't about carrying everything alone." The graduation ceremony passed in a blur of speeches and camera flashes. Lana heard her family cheering as she crossed the stage. Camille's distinctive whistle, her mother's joyful tears, Melody's professional composure breaking into enthusiastic applause, and Gideon, standing tall and proud, no longer hiding his emotions behind a corporate mask. Later, at the small celebration dinner they'd arranged at the Ethiopian restaurant, Lana looked around the table in wonder. Her mother was deep in conversation with Melody about patient advocacy programs. Camille was showing her latest poems to one of Gideon's arts program directors. Everything had changed, and yet everything felt exactly right. "I have something for you," Gideon said quietly, sliding a small package across the table. Inside, Lana found a book, the same collection of ocean poems she'd returned to him that day in his office, but now it was marked with dozens of colored tabs, each noting a passage he'd wanted to share with her. "I thought maybe," he looked uncharacteristically nervous, "maybe we could read them together. There's this little cottage on the Maine coast, near where Danny and I used to sail. It's nothing fancy, but..." "Are you asking me on vacation?" Lana's heart skipped. "I'm asking for more than that." His eyes held hers steadily. "I'm asking if you're ready to build something real with me, not just stolen moments between shifts or family dinners, but a real future together." Lana thought about how far they'd come, from midnight conversations in borrowed identities to this moment of complete truth, about how love wasn't about becoming someone else, but about finding someone who made you want to be your best self. "You know my life will always be complicated," she said softly. "Emergency nursing means unpredictable hours. Mom still needs care. Camille's about to start college. And I'll always carry Danny with me," he finished. "Always have foundation responsibilities, board meetings, memories that sometimes hurt, but maybe that's okay. Maybe real love isn't about having a perfect life. It's about having someone to share the imperfect parts with." Lana completed the thought. She opened the book of poems, smiling at his careful annotations. Yes, yes, yes to the cottage in Maine. Yes to building something real. Yes to all of it. His smile could have lit up the darkest night. Around them, their families continued talking and laughing, creating new connections and possibilities. Outside, the city moved in its eternal rhythms, hospital shifts changing, hotels welcoming new guests, lives intersecting in countless ways. But here, in this moment, Lana finally understood what her mother had meant about her grandmother's lucky dress. Some clothes weren't about becoming someone else. They were about celebrating who you'd always been, who you were becoming, who you could be when surrounded by love that saw and accepted all of you. She reached for Gideon's hand, feeling the steady strength of his grip. They'd started as strangers in a hotel corridor, each trying to escape their reality. They'd become friends in midnight conversations, sharing pieces of their truth. And now, finally, they were partners, not despite their complications and responsibilities, but because of how they faced them together. "Ready to go home?" he asked, as the evening wound down. Lana looked around one last time, at her mother's bright eyes and stronger smile, at Camille's confident glow, at Melody's proud nod, at the future spreading out before them all. "Yes," she said, meaning so much more than just leaving the restaurant. "I'm ready for everything." And as they stepped out into the spring evening, Lana carried with her all the versions of herself she'd ever been: the tired student, the midnight dreamer, the responsible daughter, the emerging nurse. But most importantly, she carried the knowledge that love wasn't about becoming someone new. It was about finding someone who made you brave enough to be exactly who you were, who you'd always been, who you were meant to be. Together, the waves crashed against the main shoreline, their rhythm as steady as a heartbeat. Lana sat on the cottage's wooden deck, wrapped in one of Gideon's old sweaters, reading from a worn book of ocean poems. The morning sun painted everything in soft gold, including the small diamond that now caught the light on her left hand. "I thought I'd find you out here." Gideon emerged from the cottage carrying 2 cups of Ethiopian coffee, a tradition they'd maintained. His hair was slightly messy from sleep, his guard completely down in the way it only was when they were here, away from the responsibilities of city life. "Just finished my night shift calls," she said, accepting the coffee. As the emergency department's newest charge nurse, she kept her phone close even during their weekend escapes. "Everyone's stable." He settled beside her, their shoulders touching. "Camille called earlier. Said she's got big news but wants to tell us in person at Sunday dinner. Mom thinks she's won another poetry slam." Lana smiled, thinking of her sister's growing success in the college performance circuit. "But my money's on that arts fellowship she applied for. Either way, she's thriving." Gideon's voice held genuine pride. He'd become as much a part of her family as she had of his foundation work, each of them building bridges between their worlds. The cottage had become their sanctuary, a place where the emergency room nurse and the foundation director could just be Lana and Gideon, where they could read poetry, sail in Danny's restored boat, and remind themselves that love wasn't about escaping reality, but about facing it together. "Well, what time's your video call with the new pediatric research team?" Lana asked, noting how the sunlight caught the ring he now wore on a chain, Danny's ring, no longer a weight of grief, but a symbol of continuing his work in new ways. "Not until noon. Plenty of time." He pulled her closer, breathing in the morning air. "Though we should head back to the city soon. Your mother's new treatment evaluation is tomorrow. She's doing so much better now." And it was true. With proper medical support and the stability that came from Lana's steady career and Gideon's quiet assistance, Patricia had grown stronger. She'd even started volunteering at the hospital's family support program, turning her experience into help for others. The Harmony Inn was visible in the distance, its Victorian architecture distinctive even from the shoreline. They'd kept their connection to the place where their story began. Lana still coordinated with the guest services team for families of hospital patients, and Gideon had helped establish a partnership program for medical housing. "Sometimes I wonder," Lana said softly, "what would have happened if I hadn't worn that borrowed dress that night, if I'd just done my job and gone home. I'd like to think we would have found each other anyway." Gideon's voice was thoughtful. "To maybe in the hospital corridors, or at one of the Foundation's events. Some stories are meant to be told, even if they take different paths. But I'm glad it happened the way it did." She turned to face him. "All of it, even the hard parts, because it taught us both that real love isn't about who we pretend to be. It's about who we really are." he finished, pulling her into a kiss that tasted of coffee and possibility. Jasabem and who we help each other become. Behind them, the cottage door creaked open as the rest of their weekend guests emerged. Camille with her notebook full of new poems, Patricia moving steadily with her cane, Melody carrying a tray of breakfast pastries, the small deck filled with morning conversation and laughter. Lana looked around at her gathered family, the one she'd been born into and the one she'd chosen, and felt the final pieces of her heart settle into place. They were all here, exactly as they were meant to be. No borrowed dresses, no corporate masks, no pretenses, just real love in all its beautiful, complicated glory, and that was the greatest magic of all. The end. In Lana and Gideon, we see how a lie born from the fear of not being enough almost destroyed a genuine connection. In your life, have you ever caught yourself hiding who you really are for fear of not being accepted? How did you overcome this and learn to show your true self to the world? Your participation in this channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like button and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.